فمن يعمل من الصالحات وهو مؤمن فلا كفران لسعيه وإنا له كاتبون.
من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. أما بعد، فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله، وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم، وشر الأمور محدثاتها، فإن كل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. فيا ربي حمدا ليس غيرك يحمد، ويا من له كل الخلائق تصمد، لك الحمد كل الحمد لا مبدأ له ولا منتهى، والله بالحمد أجده. وأصلي وأسلم على من بعثه الله بالحق، نبينا وحبيبنا وقدوتنا محمد بن عبد الله، عليه أفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم. وبعد. We praise Allah, we extend profound gratitude to His favors that He has descended and blessed on us. We ask Allah to make us from the most success from among His servants. By the end of this sitting, we will be told, Kumu maghfuran lakum, wa ma dhalika ala Allahi bi'aziz. At the same material moment, we send peace and salutation upon the masterpiece, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, his household, his companions, and all of those who shall follow their righteous guided path to the day of accountability. Having said that, brothers and sisters in Iman, today happened to be the 27th day of Sha'aban, with the Hijrah being 1444, corresponding with the 19th March 2023. Between Maghrib and Isha prayer, as we started our session yesterday. So if brothers and sisters could remember where we ended yesterday, we look at a person who in the fasting, or this is a series of the Ramadan preparation, as we have promised at the beginning of the session yesterday. And we're hoping to end it today by actually open a forum for a question and answer section in that regard. Yesterday we ended on where Imam Abu Zayd al-Qayrawani, the Tunisian Imam who wrote this book in the Maliki school of thought, upon being requested from Abu Mahraz that he should write something, an Islamic literature pertaining to Islamic jurisprudence that he could teach his students. So yesterday we ended on where he said, وَمَنْ أَفْطَرَ فِي نَهَارِ رَمَضَانَ نَاسِيًا فَعَلَيْهِ الْقَضَاءُ فَقَطْ. That anyone who in the month of Ramadan would actually eat food or drink anything out of forgetfulness, then the only thing that is on him as a penalty is to pay back only that day. Paying back only that day. وَكَانَ ذَلِكَ مَنْ أَفْطَرَ فِيهِ لِضَرُورَةٍ مِّن مَرَضٍ. And the same ruling also is applicable to someone who, for example, out of sickness, that he would eat or break the fast in the afternoon of Ramadan. So that person too, the penalty on the person is just to pay only for that day, but not to actually the penalty of kafara, which is actually shahrain mutatabi'ain. So the person only pay for that day alone and not any other day. So today we are continuing from where he says that وَمَنْ سَافَرَ سَفَرًا تُقْصَدُ فِيهِ الصَّلَاةِ فَلَهُ تُقْصَرُ فِيهِ الصَّلَاةِ فَلَهُ أَنْ يَفْطَرُ وَإِنْ لَمْ تَنَلْهُ ضَرُورَةٌ وَعَلَيْهِ الْقَضَاءُ وَالصَّوْمُ أَحَبُّ إِلَيْنَا. that if anyone who actually is embarking on a journey, meaning a traveling person, is traveling and then that traveling would warrant the person to actually pray qasr prayer. And I'm sure you are aware of what qasr prayer is. Qasr prayer is reducing the prayer that is Zuhur, Asr and Isha to 2 rakat each. As for Isha, as for Maghrib and then Fajr remains the same. So Qasr, as Allah said in Surah An-Nisa, chapter 4 of the Quran, that if you are actually on a journey, embarking on a journey, then there is no harm on you if you actually what? Reduce the prayer or shorten it. That is the Salat al-Qasr. We ask Allah to grant us the understanding for that. So anyone who is also traveling and that traveling actually will warrant the person to pray Salat al-Qasr, then the person can decide to actually break the fast. And that is actually very clear from the hadith of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam that has been reported, very authentic, that kunna ma Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam faminna al-sahim wa minna al-muftir فقال فلا يعيب الصائم على المفطر ولا المفطر على الصائم أو كما ورد عنه عليه الصلاة والسلام, that they were embarking on a journey and then the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam with the companions, and then among them were those who have fasted and among them were those who are not fasting. So what is clear here is that the journey was actually embarked on during the month of Ramadan. So among them were fasting people and among them were those who have not fasted. So the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ told them that those fasting should not actually look at those not fasting as with any form of eye. They shouldn't look at them to be an evil individual. Likewise, those who are not fasting should not also look at those who are fasting as some people who are actually doing something negative. So the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ has opened the gate, and the choice is now yours. Depending on the situation, if you realize you can fast, then the ball is actually in your court. And then the Prophet ﷺ remarked in an authentic hadith as well that it is not out of righteousness to fast while traveling. And that is when you realize that the traveling would come with all sort of mashaqqa, all form of difficulties, that when you fast, you would have difficulties in terms of your life. That's why Allah says, يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ بِكُمُ الْيُسْرَ وَلَا يُرِيدُ بِكُمُ الْعُسْرَ. Allah wants for you easiness and not difficulties. So depending on the situation that you have. And but the question is, how many journey or how many in terms of the distance are you supposed to really pray Qasr prayer? The discussion that we have from the Maliki school of thought that I have here is the contemporarily, it is 83 kilometers. 83 kilometers journey, then it's actually warrant for you to pray Salat al-Qasr. I'm sure I'm clear on this. 83 kilometers journey would warrant for you to really embark on the Qasr prayer, and that is the Maliki school of thought. And as well, I discussed with you the school of thought that we have had, and the book that we are reading currently is the school of thought of Imam Malik bin Anas, Imam Darul Hijrah. Now, and he said that وَصَوْمَ حَبُّ إِلَيْنَا, but to fast during the journey, if you have the means, that is what is recommended in the Maliki school of thought. And he said, وَمَنْ سَافَرَ أَقَلَّ مِنْ أَرْبَعَ بُرْدٍ. So the Arba Burdin here is the 83 kilometers. That is the estimation that I actually made that calculation out of that. And that is the outcome I had. 83 kilometers estimatedly, right? بُرْدٍ فظن أن الفطر مباح له فأفطر فلا كفارة عليه وعليه القضاء. That if you realize that the 83 kilometers that you are traveling and then there is, or less than that, but you realize that the fasting is going to be a difficult situation for you, then you can actually what? Break the fast, and then unto you is only qada, to pay only that day, but not as a kafara of the 2 months consecutively. وَكُلُّ مَنْ أَفْطَرَ مُؤَوَّلًا فَلَا كَفَارَةَ عَلَيْهِ. But anyone who would actually break his fast mu'awwalan with a valid Islamic reason, or Islamic based, valid, legitimate reason, then there is no any kafara upon the person. وَإِنَّمَا الْكَفَارَ عَلَى مَنْ أَفْطَرَ مُتَعَمِّدًا. But then the kafara, the penalty of you fasting 60 days consecutively, that is 2 months, then is for the person who has break the intention, the fasting intentionally out of maybe jima, that is sexual intercourse related activities, and we will come to discuss what it means by that. So if you break it intentionally, then there is a kafara on you. The kafara is fasting 60 days consecutively or feeding the poor 60 days within the every day. Every day, that is 60 days, and every day. Yesterday I think we have made the estimation depending on where you have had yourself on that. That's why yesterday we remarked that if you only come for yesterday, of course this wouldn't be very enough for you. So is that بأكل متعمدا بأكل وإنما الكفارة على من أفطر متعمدا بأكل أو شرب أو جماع مع القضاء. Allahu Akbar. So anyone who will break his fasting intentionally in the month of Ramadan, you know that this is not forgetfulness. You eat food intentionally. The Maliki school of thought is the fact that you or drink water or any form of drink or having sexual intercourse, then there is a need for you to what? Do what we call qada, to pay that what you have that. وَالْكَفَّارَةُ فِي ذَلِكَ إِطْعَامُ سِتِّينَ مِسْكِينًا لِكُلِّ مِسْكِينٍ مُدٍّ بِمُدِّ النَّبِي. So he says that وَكَفَّارَةٌ فِي ذَلِكَ إِطْعَامُ, that the kafara, the penalty on that is to fast 60 days consecutively, meaning 2 months consecutively following each other, miskinan. Or he's saying that وَفِي ذَلِكَ إِطْعَامُ سِتِّينَ مِسْكِينًا, or that person too can feed the poor person 60 days, and every day you are feeding that poor person. And I think yesterday the discussion we did was briefly, if you average, on average, the cost of living within a day in terms of food, if the person would use 10 cedis in the morning, afternoon, and then evening 10 cedis, then that will be 30 cedis. So you give it out as every day. So every day you are supposed to give the 30 cedis. This is just a basic estimate I'm making for that. Okay. And then he's saying that لِكُلِّ يَوْمٍ مِسْكِينٍ بِمُدِّ النَّبِي. Mud. The Mudd al-Nabi, estimated like yesterday I was telling you, it is something that is actually more than the 1 cup, but then less than the 3 cups, meaning less than half of the ulunka, what do you call it? Bowl. You understand? So basically that is what we need to know. And then the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu too, he has preferred that we use a hand, not a very huge hand that has a very, like, you know, some people have a palm that is actually very big. Not that, and not so small as well. So looking at average, that is why we are there for average. Looking at someone who has a normal hand, then you actually fetch it 1, 2. 1, 2. It is the equivalent to the Mudd al-Nabi. And then we have also had a discussion. The Mudd al-Nabi is equally equivalent to maybe something like 0.88 liters. That is the estimation that I actually went and then made that calculations. But that is what I have, and then I justified that, and I realized it was actually fantastic on that respect. And then, so you have to feed that person with a quantity that is actually what? 0.66 liters. But now the question is, 0.66 liters of maybe a flour wouldn't be unequal to that of rice in terms of what? The density. I'm sure we have mathematicians and science students. When I say density, you know the meaning of density. Or the weight, or the mass. Meaning that of rice will be different from that of gari. That of rice will be different from that of date. So what is preferable is that you fetch 2 hands of what? Your palm like that, one, and then another. And that is equivalent to 1 mud. I hope I'm clear on that. And then the Sa'a Nabi is what? 4 of the amdad, the mud. So 1, 2 is 1 mud. So 4 of them is termed as the Sa'i. I hope you get that. And then the poor person need to be fed by a food of that magnitude. Naam, فَذَلِكَ أَحَبُّ إِلَيْنَا. And then the Maliki school of thought are saying that to feed the poor is something preferable or recommended in the madhab of Imam Malik. وَلَهُ أَنْ يُكَفِّرْ بِإِتْكِ رَقَبَةٍ أَوْ صِيَامِ شَهْرَيْنِ مُتَتَابِعَيْنِ. But then the person too is at liberty. So this is what we call adalatul adala. They told you what is preferable to them, but they are telling you what is also available to you. So you can actually what? That is itke raqaba, a slave. You can actually buy a slave and then free him. If, for example, you have someone who is called Abdullah and then he's actually a slave, you can actually go and buy that person and then free the person. So now the person is no more a slave. So you, the act of you buying and freeing the person is a kafara upon you. Or the shahru siyamu shahrayn mutatabi'ain, that is 60 days consecutively. I'm sure I'm clear on that. And then the saw in Nabi, when I also made the calculation on that, I had the 2.752 liters. That is the saw. So 0.688 times 4 would give you that 2.752 liters. I told you it is actually 4 of the mud the Nabi would give you one side, right? He said, وَلَيْسَ عَلَيْهِ أَنْ يَفْطَرْ فِي قَضَاءِ رَمَضَانَ مُتَعَمِّدًا كَفَّارَةً. So anyone, وَلَيْسَ عَلَى مَنْ أَفْطَرَ فِي قَضَاءِ رَمَضَانَ مُتَعَمِّدًا كَفَّارَةً. If you are paying back your Ramadan, if you are paying back Ramadan, maybe a lady, for example, she has made some number of days and now she is paying. And then in the daytime, the day she's trying to pay back, she intentionally break that fast. There is no another kafara saying that, okay, so you have to fast 60 days consecutively for doing that. I hope I'm clear on this. But it is not preferable as well. But there is no kafara on her. That is the point we want to establish. And he says that وَمَنْ أُغْمِيَ عَلَيْهِ لَيْلًا فَأَفَاقَ بَعْدَ طُلُوعِ الْفَجْرِ فَعَلَيْهِ قَضَاءُ الصَّوْمِ. That anyone who actually go or who faints, someone who faints, and then أُغْمِيَ عَلَيْهِ لَيْلًا in the night, فَأَفَاقَ بَعْدَ طُلُوعِ الْفَجْرِ, but then he became normal after the dawn. Do you understand the issue? Maybe he is... No. Like he fainted after Isha, for example, and then the only time he became normal was after people have taken their suhoor. So that day there is no what? Fasting for him. He cannot fast. So he paid back that fast after the Ramadan. But then the salah, if there happen to be a salah in between that period, that salah he is not going to pay it in his life. I hope you are clear on this. Yes. Let's take it that he actually fainted after Asr. After Asr. Someone fainting after Asr, right? And then he only came to normal after, after people have consumed their suhoor at dawn. So maybe let's take 5:30, for example. I'm just using this for example for you to actually understand the whole picture. So here we have had what? Maghrib and Isha off, and Fajr off. So that day fasting, he will fast it after Ramadan, because that day he cannot fast because the fasting has already begun. But then the Salah, the Maghrib, Isha, and then the Fajr, he is not paying them back. I hope you get that. So that is why he says that وَمَنْ أُغْمِيَ عَلَيْهِ لَيْلًا فَعَفَاقَ بَعْدَ طُلُوعِ الْفَجْرِ فَعَلَيْهِ الْقَضَاءُ الصَّوْمِ وَلَا يَقْضِي مِنَ الصَّلَوَاتِ الَّتِي أَوْ مِنَ الصَّلَوَاتِ إِلَّا مَا أَفَاقَ فِي وَقْتِهِ, except the prayer that he actually became normal during a time. So now he started to pray Fajr, he prayed Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, and continues. Please, is this issue clear? Alhamdulillah. In saying that, وَيَنْبَغِي لِلصَّائِمِ أَنْ يَحْفَظُ لِسَانَهُ, that it is appropriate, it is recommended, it's compulsory in other words, that you safeguard your tongue. You don't utter anything. You see some people moving and then you utter anything against them. It's not appropriate. And then وَالْجَوَارِحِ, your body parts. You don't use your body parts to also harm other people during Ramadan, and even beyond Ramadan and before Ramadan. So before, during, and after, you are not supposed to do, but it is more recommended during Ramadan. As the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, his hadith came to say that Allah is not actually in need of a person fasting and then his tongue and then his body part is there harming people around. You understand? وَيَعَذِمْ مِنْ شَهْرِ رَمَضَانِ مَنْ أَظَّمَ اللَّهُ سُبْحَانَهُ وَتَعَالَى. There is a need for us to accord the month of Ramadan that dignified or that dignity as Allah has accorded that month of Ramadan. وَلَا يَقْرَبُ الصَّائِمُ النِّسَاءِ. If you are a married person, please, here we are discussing our married people. We are not discussing those who are actually bachelors, attaining bachelor degree and attaining bachelor in normal life. This is serious, right? وَلَا يَقْرَبُ الصَّائِمُ النِّسَاءِ. You don't, during the month of Ramadan, in the daytime, you don't come closer to your wife. Meaning you don't have to have sexual intercourse with the wife during the month of Ramadan in the afternoon. But in the night, you can have. That's why Allah saying that أُحِلَّ لَكُمُ اللَّيْلَةَ الصِّيَامُ الرَّفَثُ إِلَى نِسَائِكُم. The verse in Surah Al-Baqarah. I'm sure you are aware of this verse. So during the month of Ramadan, if you are married in the afternoon, you are not supposed to bil-wat'i, that is sexual intercourse, wala mubashara, or hugging that to let you, will come to that, wala qubla, or kissing, to kiss someone, your wife, not someone, your wife. Your wife, right? Not someone. I mean your wife, your legitimate wife. لِلَّذَّةٍ فِي نَهَارِ Ramadan, with pleasure in the afternoon of Ramadan. In the afternoon of Ramadan doesn't mean in the morning you can do that. Right? Nahar doesn't really mean in the afternoon and then you can do it only. No. When you are done with what? Taking the suhoor, then up to where the time for breaking fast will set in. وَلَا يُحْرِمْ ذَلِكَ عَلَيْهِ فِي اللَّيْلِ. But then that is not haram for him at night. So any moment after breaking the fast, you can have these things that we have listed with your wife till the dawn, when you are supposed to really get your suhoor. Wala ba'sa, please take note. This one is for married people. I'm repeating. It's haram for you to hug someone who is not your wife. It's haram for you to kiss someone who is not your wife. It's also haram to have sexual intercourse with someone who is not your wife. Let's make that clear and not be playing around with serious issues, right? Wala ba'sa an yusbiha junuban min al-wat'i. But then listen to this. Yesterday I think I made mention of this. When you wake up and then you are in a state of junub, major impurity out of janaba, after you have had sexual intercourse, for example, with your wife, and then you wake up and it was almost time for suhoor to end. Then with that state, you can actually consume your suhoor, and then after that you bath, even with the lady as well. I'm sure you understand this. He said that وَمَنِ الْتَزَّ فِي نَهَارِ رَمَضَانِ بِمُبَاشَرَةٍ أَوْ قُبْلَةٍ فَأَمْذَى لِذَلِكَ فَعَلَيْهِ الْقَضَاءُ. Anyone, listen to this and listen carefully. Anyone who would hug his wife. Here we are not talking anyone. Your wife, that legitimate we are talking about. If you hug your wife with pleasure, or kiss with pleasure, and then Matthew comes out as a result, then فَعَلَيْهِ الْقَضَاءُ. You have to pay that fasting, meaning that your fasting is what? Invalid. But if you hug your wife or kiss your wife, and then you have not actually have any Matthew or money or wadi coming up, then your fast is valid. The hadith of Aisha is clear in that respect. We ask Allah to grant us the understanding. And He said that وَإِن تَعَمَّدَ ذَلِكَ حَتَّى أَمْنَى فَعَلَيْهِ الْكَفَّارَةُ. But if you intentionally hug, kiss, coming closer to your wife to the extent that you release sperm, then there is kafara on you. Sperm is different from wadi, right? When sperm comes out as a result, then there is a kafara. And kafara here is what? Either 60 days of fasting consecutively, or freeing a slave, or feeding the poor within that time space. And then he says that وَمَنْ قَامَ رَمَضَانَ إِيمَانًا, I think he's ending the page. Allahu Akbar. وَمَنْ قَامَ رَمَضَانَ إِيمَانًا وَاحْتِسَابًا غُفِرَ لَهُ مَا تَقَدَّمَ مِنْ ذَنْبِهِ. Anyone who during the month of Ramadan have the intention to fast, imanan, with the intention, wahtisaba, and hoping for Allah's ajr, hoping for Allah's reward, in other words, then he said that غُفِرَ لَهُ مَا تَقَدَّمَ مِنْ ذَنْبِهِ. Allah would actually forgive him what he has done in his life, that he has done them already. For example, during this month of Ramadan that we are waiting, maybe 3 days or some days to come, and then you actually have the intention that Allah has ordained it upon you. So you are doing it out of the iman, and then you are doing, hoping for Allah's reward and mercy. Then Allah is actually forgiving your what? Shortcomings that you have done in the previous years. You understand that? وَإِن كُمْتَ فِيهِ بِمَا تَيَسَّرَ فَذَلِكَ مَرْجُوٌ فَضْلُهُ. That anyone who during the month of Ramadan as well wake up at night and say a prayer. Example is what we are saying, the Taraweeh here, and then the last 10 days, the Tahajjud. So this is what he's trying to discuss in a summarized form. He says that anyone who wake up also in the night to say this prayer, he's saying that فَذَلِكَ مَرْجُوٌ فَضْلٌ. This is the most you can have out of, because a lot of reward is being descended upon that. As the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam says that يَنْزُلُ الرَّحْمَنُ مِنْ كُلِّ لَيْلَةٍ, that Allah actually descend upon the last heaven, asking Allah man yastaghfir fayalqa ghafiran, as we have memorized it in Al-Ha'iyya of Abdullah Abu Bakr bin Abi Dawood, his son Abdullah, Al-Ha'iyya, that ala mustaghfirin yalqa ghafiran wa mustamni'un khairan wa rizqan fayamnahu. Anyone who is there at this time in the night who would be seeking for Allah forgiveness, so Allah would forgive him. Is there anyone seeking for anything good, and then Allah would grant him? So if you are in need of something, even if you are not in need of something, then there is a need for us to at least one day, one time, actually put into practice the Qiyamul Layl. Is actually very important. In saying that, وَتَكْفِيرُ الذُّنُوبِ بِهِ وَقِيَامُ فِيهِ فِي الْمَسَاجِدِ الجماعات أو في المساجد الجماعات بإمام, so that the masjid that we have the imam leading, just like we have in this masjid, you see, it's appropriate that you would come and then pray that. And then at the time of Umar radiallahu anhu, it was established, and he had made Ubay bin Ka'b. Ubay bin Ka'b is the one the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam saying that Aqra'ul Ummah, he is the best reciter of the Quran of this nation. After the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the next in terms of best recitation of the Quran is Ubay bin Ka'b. Ubay bin Ka'b. But then the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Man ahabba an yaqra al-Qur'ana ghaddan tariya, fa alayhi an yaqra qira'ata bin Ummi Abd." Anyone who wants to recite the Quran fresh with good melody, then he recite the methodology or the recitation of Ibn Mas'ud. That is who we call Ummi Abd. And Ibn Mas'ud has been granted the mizmar of the Nabi Allah Dawood. He has been granted the nice voice of recitation of the Quran, just like Dawood alayhi salatu wasalam was given. So if he is reciting his Tawrat, Zabura was given to Atayna Dawuda Zabura. When he is reciting his Zabura, animals and every living organism actually relax and be listening to that out of the what? Melody. There was a day the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was bypassing behind the window of Abdullah bin Mas'ud. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, upon hearing Abdullah bin Mas'ud reciting the Quran, he couldn't actually proceed to wherever he was going. He relaxed and listened entirely what Abdullah bin Mas'ud was reciting. In the morning when they met, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam told him, "Last night I was passing and then I heard you reciting the Quran. In fact, I was unable to move out of the what? The melodious voice you are using and reciting the Quran." And Ibn Mas'ud told him that if I knew you were there, I would have come forth with voices that you have never heard before. Meaning this was done not even intentional to actually please the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but look at the remark of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he's saying that if the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if he was aware the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was there, he would have come forth with better voices. So you can imagine the voices he had. But then that is what? Melodious voice and perfection. And then the Prophet ﷺ said that Akra'ukum Ubay. But then the best recitation of the Quran can be suited from who? Ubay bin Ka'b. So here what we mean is that there is best recitation of the Quran. Some people can be granted the ability to recite the Quran perfectly, but then maybe their voice is not very nice to your hearing, but that recitation is without errors. I hope you are getting this discussion. You said error, not that word. Yes. Now, so he's saying that prayer in masjid is actually more important. He's saying that وَمَنْ شَاءَ قَامَ فِي بَيْتِهِ وَهُوَ أَحْسَنُ لِمَنْ قَوِيَتْ نِيَّتُهُ وَحْدَهُ. That anyone who thinks that praying it alone in his room is better for him, then, or that is where he can have the tuma'anin, the khushu, the sound mind to actually concentrate in the prayer alone, then he should actually be in his room to pray. وَكَانَ السَّلَفُ اللَّهُ أَكْبَرُ وَكَانَ السَّلَفُ الصَّالِحُ يَقُومُونَ فِيهِ فِي الْمَسَاجِدِ. But then he says that بِعِشْرِينَ رَكَعَاتٍ, that the Salaf al-Salih, that is among the Sahaba, as we gave the qada of Umar radiallahu anhu, they used to say it in what? In masjid. And it was the time of at the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it was there. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam came the first day, second day, the third day of what? For Taraweeh prayer. But then the fourth day he didn't come. They called him, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as-salah, as-salah. He heard, but he never came out. In the morning he remarked that he feared to come out, so that that prayer would be made compulsory, and then we will be unable to fulfill it. Imagine Taraweeh is compulsory. Imagine Tahajjud is compulsory. That is where you understand the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam being sent that وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً. Allah, that He has sent the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam as a mercy to us. If he came and then Allah said Tahajjud is compulsory, you come and here and stand from 12 to 3 a.m. every day in your life. That is where you understand the situation. And that is why the deen comes with ease, right? Last year we have a brother who, I think on the 19th day, he came and accepted the religion. We told him the religion is simple, but remember, at the same time, the next we are praying Taraweeh. And then the next day, Tahajjud. I told him to relax. This one is for us who are the old timers. So he should relax, because the consideration I made is that he just accepted the religion someday, like on the 19th. So 2021st, standing for Taraweeh, Tahajjud, what's happening here? So we actually gave him that. So you realize that later on, when he became well versed into the system, no one will come to call him to come for Tahajjud prayer in that respect. So those who are newcomers in the religion, there is a need for us to really look at their situation. In fact, even in the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu his time, stuff like that has happened. People who came to accept the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu Islam, he asked them not to accept the religion at the time. Why? Because if they accept the religion, they will actually go back. So he asked them, the first, don't even accept for you to even go back. So among them, there are companions who the Prophet ﷺ made them not to accept the religion at a tough time. So when he became victorious and people came and then easiness started to come, then he allowed them to really come and that. So the Salaf, when we say Salaf al-Ummah, these are the companions of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and then he's saying that they used to pray it بِعَشَرَ بِعِشْرِينَ رَكَعَةٍ 20 rak'at. That is within, for every 2 rak'at there is taslim, as he was saying. Summa yutiruna bi-thalath. So the last 3 would be actually, that's the shafi wal witr, right? So the shafi wal witr, as the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his hadith is saying that the last prayer in a night should be witr. So it should just be 1 unit or odd number. So you can pray the 2 rak'at, the number you can. As Aisha said that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu has not gone beyond a certain level, which will count. But you pray, maybe you can pray 2 up to 5, making 10, and then you pray the shafi al witr, making 13. You understand? So this is what is supposed to be done. And he's saying that وَيُفْصِلُونَ بَيْنَ الشَّفْعِ وَالْوِتْرِ بِسَلَامٍ. The shafil wal witr is being separated with what? Salam. So after the first 2 rak'ah, then you actually say salam and then actually come with the 3rd rak'ah. But you can actually also combine that as well. You're saying 3 rak'ah at a go with 1 taslim. But it's not supposed to be said like Maghrib. You can pray them all openly or all silent. Right? He said that ثم صلوا بعد ذلك 36 ركعة غير شفع والوتر وكل ذلك واس وسلم من كل ركعتين وسلم من كل ركعتين. So later on it came to the time that they used to even pray ستة وثلاثين, that is 36 rak'at. 36 rak'at, that is the time of what? Umar bin Abdul Aziz. The discussion has been done here. Umar bin Abdul Aziz realized that the time people used to stand length recitation in the prayer. So now he reduced the number of what? The length recitation, but then by increasing the number of rak'at, right? Depending on the time, and that is what Imam Malik actually what? Supported, meaning that is why he actually chose among the madhab of the madhahib al-arba. And then he's saying that وَكُلُّ ذَلِكَ وَاسِعٍ. This is actually open. There is no mass restriction. If you do this, it's tantamount to something much of haram or something. I hope you get that. It's wasi. The door for that is actually open. And he's saying that وَقَالَتْ عَائِشَةَ. This is where we end for this book. وَقَالَتْ عَائِشَةَ رَضِيَ اللَّهُ عَنْهَا ما زاد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم في رمضان ولا في غيره على 12 ركعتين بعدها الوتر. That the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Ramadan have not ever been praying more than what? 10 rak'at. Meaning the maximum he has prayed is 10 rak'at with what? The Shafi wal Witr, making 13 maximum. I hope you get that. That is the Aisha's hadith, and that comes with the end of this book. We ask Allah to grant us the understanding. What is the time now? 7:20. So basically I want us to really look at the presentation in this. It's a summarized form of what we have done. We are not reading anything word for word. So the Psalm Ramadan, I think we have discussed about how important it is. And I told you that it was actually prescribed to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ the 2nd year of Hijrah. And then the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ observed 9 different Ramadan in his life. And Allah has said that كُلُّ عَمَلِ بِنِ آدَمْ يُضَاعَفْ حَسَنَةً بِعَشْرَةِ أَمْثَالِهَا إِلَى 700 ضِعْفٍ قَالَ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى إِلَّا الصَّوْمَ فَإِنَّهُ لِي وَأَنَا أَجْزِي بِهِ. That every action of yours, Allah would actually multiply it to 10-fold and even to 700 multiples. But then except Sawm, that is fasting, that Allah says He is for, the Sawm is for Him, and He is the one to really pay for or give you the reward that you need for that, right? And for the Sawm Ramadan is actually compulsory. Yesterday we did that, and then he's saying that Niyatul Sawm fil Fard, and then he's saying that Thubutu Shah, the month of Ramadan is also established based on the sighting of the moon or counting Sha'ban 30 days completely. I think yesterday we said that. And then we said again that Yawm Shak, the day of uncertainty, you are not supposed to fast, even if you should fast and then it is actually correlating or corresponding with the day of Ramadan, it's not really appropriate. And then some people that are also exempted from what? Fasting. First person, a sick person. I think we have said it in our lessons. A musafir, a person who is actually in traveling, and I think we have discussed it not long ago. And then al-ha'id wa nufasa, a menstrual period lady, a lady who is actually in the menstrual period, and then a person who has also given birth, and then the blood that comes as a result of giving birth. And then al-hamil, the pregnant woman. A pregnant woman too is at liberty either to fast or not to fast, depending on the situation that she's going through. Do you understand? So that person, if she is not fasting, then she could actually feed the poor or wait after Ramadan and then pay back what she has done. And then al-murdi, somebody, a nursing mother who is actually breastfeeding a kid. So that person is also exempted from that, depending on the situation that she may have herself. And then he said that al-ajiz and his son, someone who is also maybe 70 years, 65, very old, he cannot fast. So this person too is not actually supposed to fast if he cannot fast. It's not compulsory for a person to really fast in the month of Ramadan. And a person can actually what? Feed the poor. And then the feeding of the poor, I think we have done justice to that. And then mufsidat is some, what actually nullifies of what? Fasting. What can actually nullify your fast? Eating and drinking in the afternoon, morning of Ramadan. The daytime of Ramadan, if you eat and drink intentionally, then your fasting is actually invalid and illegitimate. And something that gets your throat. So here, we want to use it to discuss about using eye drop, nose drop, ear drop. Using them, you can use them, but the moment you realize something down your throat, your fasting is invalid. You can use them if it is actually going to be within your head region, then that is enough. But the moment you feel it's down your throat, then this is actually invalid, or it actually nullifies your what? Your fast. And I think later on flyers will be coming, you can do that, and then they will be bringing short video. In fact, it was an assignment I gave to myself and went and discussed thoroughly the discussion of Imam Uthaymin and that of Bin Baz. And the discussion, there is no different from what they are all saying. The moment something gets down your throat out of using these drops, then your fasting is invalid. But you can use them, remember. And then usul shay al-ajab, that is what we have said. An tariq al-fahm, from an tariq, if it is actually from your what? Your mouth or your al-anf, your nostril. You understand? Most of the times, those eye doesn't actually relate or down to your throat. That is why you can use eye drop, for example. But if you use for the nose drop and then getting something down your throat, please, your fasting is actually bad, invalid. Is then that if you force yourself to vomit, remember the word istis, talab shay. If you use the word istis to trigger something yourself, if you trigger a vomit and you actually vomit, then your fasting is equally invalid. But if it comes unintentional coincidence, then you can continue with your fast, and then there is nothing. Your fast is actually what? Very legitimate. And then he's saying that awil istamna, if you masturbate, masturbation with inzal, fa'amna, and then sperm comes out of the masturbation, your fasting is equally what? Invalid. Masturbation is not only limited to guys. Ladies also masturbate, and both is haram. If you masturbate and then you release sperm as a result of the masturbation, then your fasting is invalid. I hope you get that. And then he's saying that ihtajama wa dhahar dam. So if you actually, the hijama, that the cooking yesterday we were talking, when you do that and then oozing of blood beyond a certain level would actually, meaning profound oozing of a blood, would actually nullify your what? Your fast, right? But then if you do something that out of what? Forgetfulness, or you have been forced to do, or out of mistake, then there is no harm on you. And I think we have said them in several places. If you eat mistakenly, if you forget, or you have been forced to eat based on your life threat, if you are actually living in a situation where it's actually transgressors are there forcing you, because Allah said that Rabbana la tu'akhidna in nasina aw akhtana. And then it is very clear in the hadith of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam that ufiya an ummati, that it has been lifted upon his nation, his ummah, anyone who does things unintentionally, out of forgetfulness or mistake. You understand? وَلَيْسَ عَلَيْكُمْ جُنَاحٌ فِيمَا أَخْطَأْتُمْ بِهِ وَلَكِنْ مَا تَمَّتْ قُلُوبُكُمْ. anything that you do out of mistake, then Allah is not going to actually hold you upon that. And this, the hadith is here. Ufiya an ummati an khata wa nisyan wa mastukrihu. Anyone who has been forced to do something. And then Abu Bakr, Imam Nasir Sa'adi, this is the tafsir. He has his qawaid al-fiqhiyya that says that وَالْخَطَأُ وَالْإِكْرَاهُ وَالنِّسْيَانُ أَسْقَطَهُ مَعْبُودُنَا الرَّحْمَنُ. وَالْخَطَأ, mistake, وَالنِّسْيَانُ, forgetfulness, وَالْإِكْرَاهُ, and then things that you have been forced to do. أَسْقَطَهُ مَعْبُودُنَا الرَّحْمَنُ. Our worship, the one we worship, Allah, has actually lifted it upon us. That is where we will end on that. We ask Allah to grant us the understanding. So, as introducing this book, yesterday you've seen it and today I'm bringing it back. This is the tafsir that we used to use in the tafsir during the Ramadan. So the first day of Ramadan, inshallah, we started till the end of Ramadan. That is Tafsir Sa'adi. Tafsir Sa'adi, the name of the complete name of that tafsir is Taysir al-Karim al-Rahman fi Tafsir al-Kalam al-Mannan. Do you understand? Taysir al-Karim al-Rahman fi Tafsir al-Kalam al-Mannan. Ay Taysir al-Karim al-Rahman fi Tafsiri Kalam al-Mannan. This is the book we will be using during our tafsir period during the Ramadan. So inshallah, the door is open for some few questions based on what has been said so that we can climax that as we have promised. Now.
What about if you fast and you swim? They are swimming that they find fast.
He's asking that when you have fasted and then you swim, it's related to if something has gotten to your throat or not. Bathing, you can bath. You can use miswak. But the point of discussion is if it gets something down your throat, as maybe you drown in the water unintentionally before you realize you have consumed some number of water, then of course your fasting is actually invalid in that. Now, the feeding of the poor. Yes, consecutively. So, every day you're giving 30 cities, just based on the example we gave for 60 days. So, 18. So, add those 0. 1,008. It's preferable you do it on daily basis. It is preferable. That's why he's saying that an kulli yawmin. Every day preferable to feed the poor. I'm sure you are getting that. So now you just go and then get some 1,008 and put it aside. Every day 30 cities, till you actually get that. Now, I've seen a hand here. Now. No, this question is actually a question that last year it was asked here. But then the question was actually in different regard. The person was saying that you are eating and then a bone choked you, right? A bone. And now you remember as the bone was in your throat, you remember that you are fasting. Are you supposed to drink water? Yes, you are supposed to drink water. You drink water because your health is now what? Under critical condition. You drink water, but then your fast is what? Invalid. So you pay back that day. So you have drank the water out of what? Darura. But you have eaten out of forgetfulness. So now you have break the fast with the drinking of the water out of what? Darura. وَكُلُّ مَحْذُورٍ مَعَ الضَّرُورَةِ بِقَدْرِ مَا احْتَاجَهُ الضَّرُورَةِ. So depending on the situation or circumstance that you have had yourself, now you are drinking the water based on what? That circumstance. But then the food was eaten out of forgetfulness. So the food ruling is not going to actually apply. What you have done based on the drinking of the water, then you drink the water, but then your fast is what? Invalid. But then your question, you are not supposed to drink the water. If you drink it, your fast is actually what? Invalid. Now. It is depend if it is actually a condition that is very critical, like the bone, like we said. So that is where you have to pay the 60 days consecutively. But then, if it is something, if it is the bone that is out of critical situation, then you pay only for that day and not for the kafara. I hope you get that. So your situation at hand is very important so far as issues like that is concerned. Now, you can just stand at a far distance and then take it. I'll show you.
The blood oozing.
The blood oozing.
So if something
You can leave it there.
if something cuts you by accident,
No.
then you overbleed.
No.
So what does it do?
No. So he's asking that if something out of accident, maybe you are in a car and then there is the need for you to, or there is much blood oozing out, then it is even appropriate to resort to what we call blood treatment. You'll be taken to the hospital. Even if you are going to be supplied with blood, then your fasting actually have to be halted. You have to halt the fast. Once you are done with that, then you pay only that day.
What if they don't give you transfusion of blood, but they just dress the wound and you are okay?
If you are okay, so something like that's why we say, depending on the situation that you are going, the blood is actually oozing, but then you feel you can actually continue, then there is no harm on you. But if you have had an expert advice saying that the number of blood you have lost, up to somewhere before Maghrib prayer, it will affect your system, then there is the need for you to break the fast based on what? Darura. I hope you understand. So that you break the fast on that.
Can you take IV medications?
Come again.
Can you take IV medications like intravenous medications?
Medication, no, you can take it. Because this one is saying that antarikili anf awilfam. If it is actually out of your mouth or your nostril, get into your throat. That is what. But then maybe vaccine, for example, you can take it during Ramadan and it doesn't actually make your fast invalid. I'm sure we are clear on that. Now, maybe restructure your question.
No, in the month of Ramadan, you have the family, where is and where like
You drink. Where drink? Your fast is valid. In the month of Ramadan, you came to the masjid and then you went to sleep, and then out of that you had a wet dream. The wet dream is not just a wet dream, but the wet dream that came out with sperm. Do you understand? So out of the sperm coming out is what we are looking at. So once the sperm came out of the wet dream, then your fast is still what? Valid, because it wasn't something you did out of what? Intention. You get that? But if it is masturbation you did intentional and then money or sperm comes out, then no one must tell you your fast is invalid. Now, I think there's a hand here. So those who have not asked the question now. The kafara now.
When you are capable of maybe 2 months consecutive fasting, you are capable of fasting for 2 months consecutive, and you are also capable of feeding the poor.
Now.
So is it based on your own will that you feel, okay, I will fast for 2 months, or I will do for 3 months?
He's asking, so the door is actually open. That is why the book we read here, he says that wa it'am ahabbu ilayna. The Maliki schools of thought says that feeding the poor is preferable to them. But then he said that walahu, but for you are at liberty either to what? To fast the 60 days or to actually buy and free a slave. I hope you get that. So you are at liberty to do that. So if you have the means, you can fast, or if you have the money, you can equally feed the poor. Then you select one that is best suiting your situation. I hope you get that. Now, Alex,
you are saying that if like someone
are there sisters? Are there sisters? Maybe if they want to ask a question.
you say like somebody
Now. Now. He's sick. Now. Now. Without their intention. That is the point I need. Without their intention. So come again. Gonorrhea is not usually sperm.
Yeah, it's not sperm. It's just some discharges.
It's some discharges. So it's a discharge.
That's as a result of the sickness. So it's not a semen. It's not sperm.
Okay. So meaning if it is something that out of sickness and then sperm comes out, that is the worst case scenario. But he's even saying it's not actually a sperm that comes out from that. So even if it is a sperm but it's not out of intention, that is your situation, you can actually fast with that. That is also related to this same book. You can see the discussion relating to someone who urinates frequently. Someone who urinates frequently, he will just perform his ablution during the prayer. During the prayer, if that urine comes out, he continue with his prayer. He doesn't necessarily have to go back. Equally, if the person actually flushnates within a short period of time as a result of sickness, then during prayer, if it comes, then you continue with a prayer because it is what? A sickness which you don't have a thing on that. I hope you get it. So it's mostly depend on the situation. Now, Alwaris, have you checked the place?
Yeah, that you don't have. So with the sperm coming out, you know that the fasting is normal. So we did that
With the sperm coming out as a result of wet dream or masturbation.
masturbation.
Now,
So now are you paying kafara or only that?
no, you would pay for that day. You would pay for that day. If he's asking if you actually masturbate and then you money, that is sperm comes out, are you supposed to do kafara? The thought is that you would pay for that day. You will pay for that day but not kafara. But if it is sexual intercourse, that one comes with what? Kafara. That one comes with kafara.
So the kafara is for the both.
Ask a question. No, he's asking the kafara, is it for the both man and woman? If they all intentionally did that, so that is why if you are married as a lady, before you fast in Nawafil fasting, there's a need for you to prompt your husband that you are fasting today and all of them, so that they know. Do you understand? It's needed. And you need to even prompt him before you fast. You just cannot just wake up in the afternoon and tell him that you are fasting. So you need to, that is Nawafil fasting. But then the compulsory fasting himself is aware that the month of Ramadan, now it is beyond his capabilities from Allah. Right? So the both of you, if you have actually done it, then the kafara is on both of you. Now, we still have a lot of time. So the one who has not, now.
Islamic statement that if you, in the month of Ramadan,
Now.
if you continuously fast 3 days without eating or drinking, you have the complete fast.
He's asking that if you fast 3 days consecutively fasting, does it suffice? Is it enough for the 30 days fasting? Uttering this statement is haram. Intentionally, knowing, because the reason is that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said clear-cut hadith. This is actually in Sahih Bukhari, that his fasting, part of the favors that Allah has granted for his ummah as a result of their fasting is consuming the suhoor and then the breaking of the fast. But then the Prophet ﷺ himself fast a continuous fasting. When he was asked by the companions, he told them we are different, that we are not the same. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is not like us. So this one comes to tell you that things come openly for everyone. That is to eat and then fast by breaking the fast or taking the suhoor. But then that ruling that came, and the Prophet ﷺ himself is actually fasting sometimes continuously without suhoor. It is related to him alone, not the entirely, because of what? Al-ibra bi umum al-lafz la bi khusus al-sabab. Al-ibratu bi umum al-lafz la bi khusus al-sabab. If a statement comes entirely, then the ruling is applicable to all, except that there is a situation that comes specifically to make some exemptions. So this one is an exemption that the Prophet ﷺ does that, but his ummah is actually compulsory, even if it is water. That is what the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ says. So you don't actually say that you actually fast continuously for 3 days and is sufficing for that of Ramadan. No, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam has not said that anywhere, and it is haram to even portray that. Now, I've seen the hand that. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
So my question is, I had a friend and the wife was pregnant.
Now,
And she gave
now,
so she wasn't able to fast.
now,
And the following year,
now.
instead of her to fast, she fasted. So the friend asked, as well as the permissible.
Come again, please. Abloris, let me.
Asked, as well as it permissible
Now.
for me to fast along with the husband, so that we can do it.
Please take the question again because I couldn't get it.
I'm saying that I'm having a friend,
Now,
and a friend, my friend's wife,
your friend's wife. Now,
she passed on.
she passed on.
As a result of the fact that she couldn't pass last year's
Now,
fasting.
now.
And then, is it permissible for the husband to be able to come to someone, fast together with him, to pay for what the wife did not fast for?
So, if we had heard the question, the wife was pregnant in the month of Ramadan and she couldn't fast, or she gave birth during the month of Ramadan and she couldn't fast. So, this is a valid reason, because that is one thing we have to look very importantly. Is it a valid reason that made her not to be able to fast? And here it is yes. So, the next step of the question is that can she or can the husband talk to someone based on people who are her wali? Wali, yes, they can fast for on her behalf. You understand? But then the question, like yesterday, you said if the person is actually alive, there's no way you can fast for the person. But you can feed on his behalf if a person is poor. I hope your question is now answered more clearly, Hamza, right? So if a person is living, you cannot fast for the person. But the person is dead, and then the person was unable to fast based on Islamic valid reason, then illam yasim waliyuhu. It is here in this book. Yesterday I think we have discussed that. Or even if it is not in the matin, then it is actually part of the shar. That if your wali, people who are related to you by blood, for example, they can actually what? Fast for you. And your husband actually is part of those people who can actually fast on your behalf. I hope the question is clear.
With his question, he says that can he help the friend? The husband is his friend. So can he help him to fast?
Yes, if the husband has seek for you to help him in the fasting, because now if you realize that fasting only him would actually cause him much, then he can either fast with you or he can fast with his brothers within the family who are actually wali to her. The issue is that someone who is really close to her.
He is just a friend.
Please, let's do this thing in order. We don't speak at it. So you are saying that
Can he share it with a friend?
yes, of course. That is why I think we have said that. You can share it with the person that is going to fast on the person's behalf. So far as the person is no more, and his wali is the husband in charge. But if a person is not actually married, the father, the mother, the brothers are the wali. If a person is married, the responsibility entirely is you on the husband. Okay? Responsibility as a result of issues like this. You have a great take on that because she is for you now.
The question came from the sister.
Now,
That one is also related to this. She asked that if, as a wife, or like you have your husband and you have missed some fast, but due to medical condition, you can't repay the fast. So can your husband fast it on your behalf, even though you are still alive?
no, the thing that you are supposed to do is to pay, to feed the poor as you are alive. You understand? Once she is alive, but if she is dead, then the husband decides to fast for her, then that is related to this question. But then if she is alive, you can't fast for someone who is really alive. So what you can do is that to either feed the poor on that person's behalf. I hope that question is clear. Now, Nawafil fast. I don't get your question.
fast like that was someone who's and I want to be and I want to fast. Can you do that?
He is asking if you can fast on behalf of someone during Nawafil fast. It's a Nawafil fast. So if the person is no more to fast, then there is no one to actually take it. It's a Nawafil prayer. Even if the person is dead, you are not supposed to fast, not talk of the person being alive. So he's asking the question for those who would actually listen to this. If someone is alive and he is unable to fast, Nawafil fast, are you supposed to fast on his behalf? No, because it's a Nawafil fast. Nawafil fast is not compulsory. For him, not to talk of you. It's not compulsory. If I decide not to pray Monday to Friday, I decide not to fast Monday and Thursday fast. What? That's fine. Do you understand? We are not encouraging people not to fast, but to answer this question with very correct answers, right? So if you decide not to fast on Monday to Friday, you want to eat your gobe and that's fine. But if you decide to fast, then that is equally after. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said that Shawwal, if you fast Shawwal, it's like as if you have fasted throughout the year, right? Now, was there a follow-up on the...
With respect to our sister's question.
Now.
You know, some sicknesses are curable.
Now.
I don't know whether the sickness is a sickness you cannot cure or... Because if the sickness can be cured, after you gain your health, you can feel it.
That's why I even discuss about the person being alive or not. So, briefly on the person, listen to this and listen carefully. That sickness, not just your headache today, just go and drink water and get your gobe and eat, please. This is not the type of discussion we are discussing. We are talking about serious sickness. You understand? But the person, for example, right? We hoping that in the near future the person can recover from his sickness. Then the person has to wait and pay back that fast. But not just, I'm sick, my headache, today let me give 30 cedis and go and be eating anyway. No. Please, it's not like that. What is supposed to be done is that you are supposed to, and that is why for a sheikh, an old person, 60 years, 70 years, do you hope that later on in his life no? So that is why he has to pay. You understand? Because you don't hope for him to really recover again. So he would just be feeding the poor as he actually come closer to the, where I want to say.
The sickness, you said ulcer patient.
Ulcer patient. So ulcer patient, the health techniques or experts will be able to know this type of sickness. We are hoping maybe in some period to come, you can be able to recover. But if you realize that, for example, it can take you 2-3 years, then you have to feed a poor. Because 2-3 years you are accumulating Ramadan. When are you paying it? You understand? So if it is that case, then if you have the hope that within a short period of time you can recover, then there is a need for you to what? Wait and then pay after that. But if you realize that it's something that is going to take you a long time, you are unable to recover, then feeding the poor is what is really recommended on that. I think this should be the very last question so that we will climax the sitting as the time is gone. Terminal illness, example. Is there someone asking questions from the ground? Relax. Temporal sickness. Sickness cannot become. Yes, terminal. I think yesterday we discussed it. We said if you are unable, if you yourself are poor, understand? If you yourself are poor, then that is fine. You don't fast. You don't also poor. You don't also feed the poor. The hadith of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The hadith of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam to actually expatiate this. In the afternoon of Ramadan, he came after he has had an affair with his wife. Listen to this and listen carefully. He has committed sexual intercourse with his wife in the afternoon of Ramadan. So what is on him is either to fast for 60 days or feed the poor or to buy a slave and free. The Prophet ﷺ asked him, because he came and he was crying, I'm dead, I'm distracted, I'm. The Prophet ﷺ said, relax, sit down. He sat. The Prophet ﷺ asked him, what is the issue? He said, in the month of Ramadan, meaning the afternoon month of day of Ramadan, I have a sexual intercourse with my wife. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ says that, can you fast 60 days consecutively? And he said, this is 30 days. I'm unable to be patient. Imagine 60 days. So meaning he is unable to fast. He can't fast 60 days. And the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ asked him, can you feed the poor for 60 days? He said, even yesterday in my house we didn't cook. You understand? He is poor from all angles. Yesterday in my house we didn't cook. We were empty stomach. You understand? So the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ says that, can you free a slave? In Arabic when we say it raqaba, raqaba is what? The neck. It to free a neck, meaning free a slave in other words. And the Prophet ﷺ, upon asking him, he got hold, he said, aside this neck, he doesn't owe any neck on earth again. So he cannot have any person to actually, he can't buy, neither can he actually free a slave. So the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, the zakat money that was brought to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ actually gave him a portion of the zakat and went and consumed. This is the Prophet ﷺ, a home of what? Easiness. Because he has fallen among the innama sadaqat lil fuqara. First point, and he received that and went and consumed. Here the Prophet ﷺ is not there. If you come to the Imam Masjid here, he will ask you to fast. So don't tempt. Now.
Okay.
Now.
What if you are not married and you can't fast? And you are also poor at the same time.
You are not married.
Yes.
You can't fast. Why?
And your parents are not there.
Relax. You are, yes, you have to, you don't compile questions like that.
Yeah.
You are not married, yes. You are not married. You cannot fast. Why? And then?
You are not married, established.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot fast due to health conditions.
Uh-huh.
And you don't also have the means to feed.
Now.
And your parents too are not there to do that on your behalf.
Now.
What is your...
The question is actually related. That's why we said al-ibra bi umumul lafz la bi khususus sabab. The circumstance at hand is related. You don't have, but this is the problem on you. You understand? So the person actually trying to really look into that. So I think we have to close on here as we have other activities to attend to. Wa sallallahu wa sallama subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik nashhadu an la ilaha illa ant nastaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaykum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.